Everyone. My name is Seneca Bing, and this is my husband, Carlos. And we are so happy that you are here with us. So, it is August, and we are back in full swing with back to school. We know that people, parents, guardians, are sending their children back all over the place, but we also know that there's a lot of anxiety that's coming along with that because we are coming off of a year like no other and moving into a year that will not be business as usual as we would love it to be, but it will not be. And so there will be some differences there. So as we begin to send our children back, Carlos, I know that you have a whole lot on your mind as it relates to this. So go ahead and tell the people what's on your mind.
Well, I'm thinking about a lot. I'm thinking about back in March of 2020 when the pandemic began. And, a lot changed for our students in that 2019-2020 academic year. And for the most part, what I remember is that they finished that school year virtually. What was interesting was that some of the students had the equipment they needed and they were able to connect by internet. And then they also had their Chromebooks. But there were also some students who may have had a Chromebook but didn't have internet, or some students that had internet and no Chromebook. And then there were some students that didn't have anything. And so they were just all over the place. Some of the students were able to show up virtually, and then other students didn't show up at all. And quite frankly, some of them haven't been back since that point to the educational system. And so it was really rough for everybody. And then I think about this past year, the 2020-21 academic year. Some students attended classes face to face. Others were all virtual. Some were kind of hybrid where they went back and forth. Some started with the idea they were going to be face to face all year, and then they went back home and then came back to the building. Like, it was all over the place. And I know our kids were really, really confused last year. But what I found fascinating was that our teachers, they struggled with communication because it was so tough on them. They were dealing with a lot. Our parents, they struggled because they didn't really sign up to be educators. They wanted to send their kids to school to get educated, and some of them were taking on some of those responsibilities. And then our students struggled because they lacked that connection with their friends. So again, it was just rough for everybody. So then we had this past summer, and now we're getting ready for the 21-22 academic year. And, things are different this year. It seems as though the virtual option is no longer an option. It's like everybody's got to be face to face this year. And if you think in virtual, you just let that be a thought, because you got to be face to face. Everybody got to be back in the building. Wearing a mask is recommended in most places, but is it required? Governor DeWine can no longer issue orders to protect the people. And on average, 300,000 plus citizens in Ohio are catching COVID. In fact, today we had the highest we've had all summer, 3,446 cases, the highest count this summer. So, obviously we want things to go back to normal, but we have a segment of folks that aren't willing to do what needs to be done. And that, I'm thinking about folks that should get vaccinated. Everyone has their own right to do what they want to do, but if we want to get back to normal, the idea that we get vaccinated should be on top of our mind, and then at least wearing a mask wherever we go to make sure that we're not only protecting ourselves, but protecting those that we're around. So anxiety's high. Anxiety's high for our students, for the parents, for the teachers, for our administrators. And the last thing I think about that's on my mind is really we all have the same goal. It's that we want our kids to be educated, but ultimately we want them to be safe. So, that's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm thinking about. What are you thinking about?
Well, that was a lot. He just gave us a recap of everything
Yes.
that happened over the few years. But what I can say is that is a lot to process. And it's a lot for families to process, for teachers, for staff that come back into the buildings, for our administrators, because we have been through a lot, and we have to stop and pause and acknowledge that we've been through a lot of things. And then there are a lot of decisions to be made about sending our children back. So last night, our district, I work for Columbus City Schools, and we had our first virtual family engagement session. And there were many parents, grandparents, and others that were on the line. And there were many questions, right, about academics, about transportation, food service, right? What is the food going to look like, or what's going to be? And then, of course, the health and safety protocols. And so today or tonight, we really have an opportunity to talk to some fantastic educators that we have in our midst that are members of Faith Ministries Church and that we personally call friends. And so we know each of them personally. We know they work hard and have worked hard for a long time. And I know that there are sometimes some misconceptions or people want what they want. But our educators, our administrators are working extremely hard and they have many personalities they have to deal with from parents, community members, families, children, everybody. And it's a hard job. It's a big job. And so they make it look great, but it is a big job. So we want to just give you a sneak peek, right? A little behind the scenes view from the lens of a building administrator. So we have with us this evening, and we would like to introduce new assistant principal, Mrs. Sherry Chafin at Point View Elementary School in Westerville. We have Principal Tracy Colson at Mifflin Middle School and Columbus City Schools, and then Principal Jason Johnson at Northland High School in Columbus City Schools. So we'll just start with a real easy question. We just want you to, of course, introduce yourself. We know you, right? But we want you to just tell us a little bit about your school and what makes it unique. I said the name, but there's so much that goes into your schools. And then your years that you've served in education, because you didn't just land an assistant principal or a principal. There was a trajectory that you were on to get there. And so we just want to learn a little bit about you. We'll start with our very own Mrs. Sherry Chafin. Then we'll go to Principal Colson and then Principal Johnson.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. It is so great to be on the counseling couple this evening. So thanks for having me. And yes, definitely, I could tell you a little bit, possibly about my education experience, and then we can get to my school. So I have been in education since 1999, which is like, what? So it has been quite some time, and I spent most of my time in the classroom. So I've been a kindergarten teacher, first grade teacher, second grade teacher, and then I moved into instructional coaching where I had more of a whole building view. And then I also did some administration work this summer in summer intervention. So I am a brand new, like how many weeks, brand new assistant principal. So this is something that's very new and very exciting for me. So I am at Point View Elementary School, which is a little school. We have 320 darling students that come to school every day. We are a Leader in Me school, which means we definitely focus on realizing that all students are learners and leaders. So you don't have to be the principal to be a leader. Everyone can be a leader. And we really teach our kids the 7 habits to know they need to be proactive and they need to make sure they're thinking win-win and all the different 7 habits so that we can be successful as leaders and learners. So we have a great community. Everyone on staff is so dedicated to our students and making sure that they get everything that they need, whether it's emotional, physical, whatever kind of need they may have. So we're making sure that we are doing all that we can to make sure they are learning and being successful. So I'm just happy to be a part of our education of so many great young students.
Awesome. Thank you. Principal Colson.
Good evening. I am Tracy Colson. I am the principal at Mifflin Middle School. I am starting my 7th year at Mifflin Middle School. I'm starting my 23rd year with Columbus City Schools in my 15th year in administration. I have had experience in elementary, middle school, and high school. Don't ask me which one's my favorite because I love them all. A little bit about Mifflin Middle School. We have strong community partners, and that's one thing that, as a building leader, that I made sure to partner with the community to make sure that they would help impact student achievement at Mifflin Middle School. And so it's just not the school. It takes a whole community to educate students. And that's one thing that we thrive on at Mifflin Middle School. We have some awesome strong community partners. Faith Ministries is a community partner. They do our after school program. And so I'm just excited to be a part of this evening and to answer questions and then also offer some helpful tips for the families and students.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. And then Principal Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. It's a blessing to be here tonight. I started my educational career after I graduated from Virginia Union University in 2000. And I started as an English teacher, and then I transitioned to New York, where I served as a teacher and an assistant principal, and then made my way here to Columbus. This will be my seventh year as the principal of Northland High School, and we are the Vikings. And I am so proud to serve as the principal at Northland, one of the larger high schools in Columbus City Schools. And we're known for our strong academics. We have several CCP classes, that's dual enrollment classes where students can earn college credit while they're in high school. We offer several AP classes and a very robust college curriculum. We have an engineering pathway, a business pathway. We have lots of athletic programs and a very diverse student body. We are a sheltered site for um, English as a secondary language for our ESL program. And we're the only high school in Columbus City Schools that has a program for our deaf and hard of hearing community. And so I'm very proud. And this year I'm really excited because we're bringing back American Sign Language as one of our course offerings.
Good. That is great. That's great. That's just a lot of great. And I want to shout out Dr. Brown with that engineering pathway because she is fantastic.
Very cool. So, I'm wondering, because I've known you all for a while. Um, what made you decide that administration was the way to go? Um, what made you go from being a teacher to an administrator? And so we'll go in a different order. We'll start with TC and then go to Jason and then go to Sherry.
Wow, thanks, Carlos, for starting with me. I've always had that passion to wanting to lead, and I knew the bigger way to make that student impact was to become a leader. And I'm really a leader that likes to coach individuals. So I'm more of a coach instead of a traditional leader in my building. I knew my pathway was going to lead me to administration because I started off as an assistant principal. So I was an assistant principal for 8 years, and I was living my best life as an assistant principal. And then that mysterious phone call was made on a Sunday, mysteriously after church, from one of my previous bosses and said, "Oh, we have this wonderful opportunity for you." And I said, "What is this wonderful opportunity?" And they said Mifflin Middle School needed a principal to go turn it around. I was like, wow. I said, isn't this fitting, how God uses you? Because I'm at a school that is literally in the backyard of my church. And so when you think about impacting the community and impacting student achievement, I knew my ultimate end goal was to become a leader because the big people in the schools are the ones that leaders need to impact in order to impact student achievement. And so, one thing that was told to me early on in my career by Dr. Marvinia Bosley, she used to be in Columbus City Schools, and I asked her, what would that one advice that you would give to me for me to be successful as a leader? And she said, you need to know who your customer is, Tracy. And I said, well, who's that? She's like, it's not the kids. It is not the kids. You think it's the kids, but it's not. It's really the teachers and the adults in your building. And if you can master impacting the teachers in your building, they're going to impact the students. And so you need to learn how to feed into teachers, coach them, provide professional development for them so they can impact student achievement. And I think that's one of the reasons why Mifflin Middle School has been so successful, because I have truly been impacting the adults and providing the support and resources and the professional development for them.
Yes, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And important, very important.
Absolutely. Honestly, I never wanted to be an administrator. I really enjoyed my time as a classroom teacher. I was an English teacher. I was known as the grammar king. I had a teacher in high school that really drilled grammar into us, and I was able to make that a part of my skill set as an instructor. And I got a lot of satisfaction out of helping young people improve their writing skills, their speaking skills, their confidence in articulating their ideas. Um, but when I looked around the landscape of leadership, I saw that African American males needed to be represented among the ranks of leadership. And the opportunity presented itself. Like Tracy, you get that call, and they're like, "Have you ever thought about administration?" And so while I was a teacher in Brooklyn, New York, I worked on my principal license at Brooklyn College. And what was unique about that particular school, it was so small that I was able to continue teaching while I served as an assistant principal.
Wow.
Because I didn't have to do any discipline. They had a dean of students that took care of all the discipline, and all I had to do was focus on instructional leadership. And so that was a good fit for me. When we decided to move to Columbus, that changed. And as an assistant principal here, it incorporated much more of the larger view of an administrator as we know it to be in a comprehensive high school. Um, but even through my journey, it has been a blessing for me to see how I can lend my voice and my experience to ensure that students who may get overlooked or dismissed, to ensure that their voice is heard, because that's who I am, that's who I represent, and so it's an honor for me to serve as a school administrator.
Thank you.
All right. I think it's my turn, right?
It is your
So
turn.
I would say definitely I'm more like Jason, where I didn't really set out wanting to be an administrator. And even still, sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? Because I too, I enjoyed being in the classroom with my students. And I really enjoyed the coaching role that I had, which is what Tracy said really kind of resonated with me, because that is where I find my sweet spot a lot of times, is coaching the teachers and making sure they have the information that they need so that they can then instruct the students. So this summer, the opportunity just arose. God was doing some serious work this summer, so that this opportunity did arise for this to occur. I was doing some summer intervention work, and things were going so smoothly. I was having all kinds of great times with the students in summer intervention, and the opportunity just presented itself. I didn't get a call. My supervisor walked into my office during summer intervention and said something about it to me, but it was just really God working. And I do have the administrative mind because I love planning things and making sure things go well. I'm very organized in that way, but definitely it's all about the kids and their learning. I'm really at heart want what's best for kids, and I know as an administrator you have the influence to make some decisions that can really impact kids. And definitely in Westerville, I grew up in Westerville, and I always tell the story that I was always the only brown child in my class, and I wanted to come back to Westerville so that I could be a mirror for those students who may look like me but never had a brown teacher. So definitely in the administrative lens as well, that was something that's lacking in my district too. So when the opportunity arose, I knew God was putting me in this place for that specific reason, to be that person that our students can see and to make those decisions that are going to help them be successful so that they can have the things that they need as they continue to grow and learn.
Wow. So
It's really, can I jump in with something really quickly before you go? This is so, like, it's just special to hear from all three of y'all. And I'm going to tell y'all, one of the, being we're both Columbus City kids.
mhm.
And a lot of times when we were in buildings, there weren't a lot of people. There were a decent number of folks that looked like us, but as you go through education, it's nothing like having someone that looks like you to be able to mirror. And I think I heard all three of y'all mention that and the importance of it. There's a statistic that says that um, the number of teachers of color is far lower than the number of students of color in our state, and it's a huge mismatch. And so, just seeing you three here, knowing that you know you are instructors that can instruct our kids, it's really exciting and just really I'm just really my heart feels good. I'm gonna give my wife the next question. Go ahead, babe.
So, all right. Well, what I was going to say is there were a lot of themes that I heard throughout Interwoven. And so I was thinking about you knowing your customers where Tracy started, and your customer is not necessarily the student. We know who our stakeholders are, but you have to influence those that are influencing people. And we always talk about if our teachers are not well, then our students are not going to be well. If we ourselves as parents are not well, we can't care for those around us. So knowing your customer, coaching being a huge one, giving a voice to the voiceless in terms of our students of color and just people of color anyway. And then that influence that you all have as building leaders. So thank you for those little nuggets because I was jotting them down as you were saying them. So the next question though, because everyone who feels like they've gone to school feel like they can run a building, right? Okay. So mm-hmm. That's what they think. So what we want to know from you, and we'll start with Jason first, is so what is the role of a principal? I mean, surely you just come and kick your feet up on the desk and look around, right? What's the role of a principal?
Right. So I jotted down a couple of things when I saw that question in preparation for today. I think one of the biggest roles that we play as a building principal is to see, understand, and articulate the big picture. Because what people don't know, at least my staff, they have really no idea of all of the stuff that we are asked to communicate, prioritize, add it to your staff meeting. Like, it's a long list. Like, everybody's department to them outside of our school is like the number one thing. Technology, I'm number one. Everybody, social emotional learning, number one. Equity, we're number one. Accountability, number one. Testing, number one. Safety. So how many number ones can you have? So the job of a principal is to be able to synthesize and understand and prioritize and articulate a vision and a plan so that it can be received and implemented in a way that is practical. Because a lot of the theoretical stuff that you get from the top has to work in an 8-day period with 1,000 kids and 100 staff members. So you got to make that magic happen. The other big thing that we do that people may not be able to quantify is that we are responsible for checking on people. Like, we have to check on them. We have to check in, know where they are, hear their stories, be able to navigate, problem solve, and help them work through life. Because as you mentioned, if they're not taking care of themselves, how can we trust them to take care of our young people? And I would say the other big thing, and I don't want to steal thunder from my colleagues, but the other big thing is to anticipate and get ahead of problems. Like, the only surprise that I want is the ones on my birthday when I walk into my office. I don't want, listen, I'm a laid back guy, but I don't want those bad surprises. So I have to be able to anticipate what's coming and be able to be ready to respond quickly.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. So I'll go to Tracy next. What are your thoughts?
I mean, Jason said it the best. I mean, he summed that up really well. I was like, well, I guess I don't really need to say anything. That was a great summary, Jason. I mean, he really hit the nail on the head. And, when we're done, I'm actually going to go back and process everything that he said, because I think um, people do not really realize the work of a building leader. Um, and especially a head principal. I said I started off as an assistant principal, and I was living my best life. And the work that I thought I was doing have no comparison to the work that I'm doing now. When you're making decisions that's going to impact students, it's going to impact the teachers, it's going to impact your community, it's going to impact um, everything that runs in your building. And you really have to be proactive and figure out, like Jason said, how to prioritize 1,000 things coming at you at one time. And how do you set those boundaries? How do you prioritize? How do you figure out what's best for your building when it's best to implement things? This year is going to be very crucial. Um, I believe for a lot of buildings, because you cannot overload your staff. The district has 1,000 things going on, 1,000 initiatives. But if you come to your staff with all of that at one time, they're going to immediately shut down. They're going to become overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And I just truly believe Jason summed it up in a nutshell for us. You have to take baby steps with really my theme this year at Mifflin, I always try to pick a theme, and it's, reestablishing our relationships with our students in our community. And what does that look like? Staff and students have been gone for, 2 years, and everyone has an agenda. But is the agenda what people really need to hear when you come back to school on Monday for your meeting, when you have 20 different departments for Columbus City Schools telling you to do
That's right.
20 different PowerPoints? I'm not going to do 20 different PowerPoints on Monday. I'm not going to do 20 different PowerPoints on Tuesday. So I don't know who watching this right now, but 20 different PowerPoints are not going down at Mifflin Middle School. You just have to process it all and figure out what is going to be best for your staff, because you don't want them to shut down before the kids even get there on Thursday. And, a building leader, you're doing 1,000 things. And I think Jason really summed it up very well for us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Both of y'all summed it up very well for the people, okay, that are watching, that have no idea, right? No idea what really goes into your work. So, Mrs. Chafin, did you want to add anything with?
I can definitely add a little bit. I mean, it's not much more to add, but I can say that I think what Jason and Tracy were saying, really, it's a balance. We are trying. There's so many different things. If you think of a scale, and how there are so many different things that could be on your scale, really trying to find that balance so that it does work for your teachers, for your students, and really for your families. That's something that I am learning and have continued to learn throughout my years, is the importance of having that connection with your families, because they too are part of our community. So we want to make sure that we have those connections with our family, and being able to work when those surprises that aren't so good come up. So we try and be proactive, but sometimes things slip through. And when they slip through, being able to be calm, have quick decisions so that we can do things and still keep things moving. So I think those are some important things that we have to look at each and every, not even day, every minute, as we are going through the different things in our building. So that's just a little bit I would add.
Absolutely. And I just appreciate, what all of you have been saying, and the information that you gave. See, understand, articulate. I wrote all those down. Practical, prioritize, and what's best when. And what, again, you all talked about being coaches. And so it is hard to do 25 PowerPoints. One of the things that I always say is these one and done professional developments don't work. Right. And so there's time to get all 20 in at some point during the school year. But the first day when people are coming back from a summer break may not be that best day. So knowing what's best when, and continuing with that ongoing coaching, I can see why your buildings have the success that they've had. So I will hush and let you go next.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, we can lots of thoughts, lots of great information shared. Um, Sherry, with you being new to the role of or assistant principal, I'm wondering, and you kind of shared this a little bit earlier, but like, what are you really looking forward to in this role this year, in this 21-22 academic year?
I am looking forward to excitement. We've already come back to school. So just seeing, I know we have masks, so children are wearing masks, but you can see the light in the kids' eyes. They are so excited to be at school. They are asking about, oh, I can't wait to learn about math. When am I going to do this? Or when am I going to do that? So just really watching the growth of the students, and not just academically, but just the social growth, and just how they're going to continue to grow. So I am excited just about being able to see their faces a little bit closer than on screen, and just the growth and the connections that we are able to make. So that's my excitement.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And then Tracy and Jason, do you have a piece of advice that you would give Sherry as a new assistant principal? We can start with Tracy and then go to Jason.
The only piece of advice that I would give Sherry is the same that Dr. Bosley gave me. Um, the adults are your first priority and customers. Everyone knows our ultimate goal is to impact student achievement, but if we're not making sure that the adults are ready mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, they're not going to be able to impact student achievement. And once you figure out how to navigate that portion of really coaching and providing meaningful feedback to the staff in your building, and providing intentional and purposeful professional development and coaching, the sky is going to be the limit for your building. They're probably going to end up being the number one elementary school in Westerville. People always ask me, how did Mifflin get the Momentum Award my first year? And then we got recognized by the state each year. Just being intentional about the work, and purposeful about the work that you do with the adults. Because if you are purposeful and meaningful and intentional about the work that you do with all the adults, so from instructional assistants to teachers, anybody in your building that's going to impact and touch students, the sky will be the limit during your career.
Thank you,
That's
Tracy.
excellent. Yeah, that's really good advice. The piece of advice that I would give is that you don't have to turn in your faith to do this job. You don't have to check your faith at the door, it stays with you. And even when you have to give like answers that people don't want to hear, because as an administrator, you're going to have to tell people some stuff that they don't want to hear. I know that's not proper grammar, but you get what I'm trying to say. There are going to be some tough critical conversations, and people may say things to you that are intended to hurt you. But what I want you to know is that the hurt that they're attempting to share with you was there before you came along.
Mm-hmm.
So don't take it personally. Listen to it, and you know, be a duck, let it roll off your back, and keep it moving. Because we don't, in the roles that we sit in, we always don't have the answers that people want to hear, but we have to give them a response that they need to hear, and that's hard sometimes. And they might lash out in a way that church people, well, that you wouldn't hear in church. I'll put it that way. But when they do, just know that when they're responding that way, even young people that might say a joke that they think is a joke, but it just might come across very hurtful. Like, man, Mr. Johnson, you really put on some pounds during the pandemic. Well, okay, I know that, but I don't really need you to say that. But some kids just don't have filters. They just say stuff.
Mhm.
But you can't. You gotta have thick skin and just keep it rolling. Emotionally detach. Separate. Don't take that stuff home. You can
Mm-hmm.
share without unloading.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was
That
great. Thank you both.
Yeah, without.
yeah, those comments were right on time.
I've been writing notes the whole
Yeah, you've been
time.
writing notes the whole
Sorry.
time, so yeah, you're gonna have stuff to review when we get done. Um, but we're going to show a video here in a minute, and I think it kind of lines up a little bit with what you all were saying in terms of like you're gonna deal with some stuff. There's some things you can kind of anticipate, and then there's just some stuff that you wouldn't have anticipated. But in either case, you have to be on top of your game when you're dealing with the staff and the students and those parents and responding to whatever their needs are. Um, so, Mike, if you wouldn't mind showing this video, it's a quick 3 minute video, and I think it'll keep the conversation going. Let's show the video, then we'll keep the conversation going after that. Oh yeah, yeah. That when I think when Cindy sent me that video, I think I watched it. I know my eyes were sweating watching that. That was touching. It hit on a lot of different emotions. And I know with you all being in buildings, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school, your kids, your staff, like y'all are dealing with a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. So, two questions. First, I would like you all to share your reactions to the video, but then I also want you to explore the thought of how important is it for students and staff to show empathy to one another, particularly as it relates to COVID and how things have been in this world currently. So I'll start with Jason and then go to Sherry and then TC.
One of the attributes that I believe is important for a building leader is a sense of vulnerability. And because what that vulnerability does is it makes staff members more accessible to share um, happenings in their personal lives that can impact their professional lives. And the empathy part is critical because you have to really, what do you call it, get in the garden and help dig the weeds. Like you can't just stand there and say, that garden has a lot of weeds in it. You should really pull some weeds from your garden. Empathy is getting down on the ground, in the dirt, pulling the weeds.
Hmm.
And the building leader who chooses to do that will be able to accomplish what Tracy talked about, knowing your customer. And it's a scary place because when you are vulnerable, um, some people may try to take that vulnerability as a weakness and use it
Hmm.
against you at a different time. But I believe because of our faith, the Holy Spirit gives us discernment to know when to show our vulnerability. An example of that would be this past school year when we lost a staff member, and that is still very much impacting our school community. And I cannot tell you how many staff members appreciated the way them sharing with me how we were able to process that together and giving them opportunities to process that and me leading that effort. And so that's just one small way, one way that we can show that vulnerability and show that empathy, so that when we need to lean on somebody, when we're going through, we can have that same level of support that we've shared with others.
Thank you for that.
Hmm. I love what Jason said as far as being vulnerable. I definitely think that is so important, and really the word that keeps coming to me is real. I mean, what you saw in that video is real. That is what students experience, that is what teachers experience, and they come into the building every day with that weight on their shoulders. And as leaders and building administrators, definitely I feel it is our role to have that perspective, to understand that people are seeing the world differently. So how they're seeing different situations is based on things that have happened to them, and just having that perspective, knowing, as Jason said a little bit earlier, things have happened to them before what comes out of their mouth. So how they're feeling or how they're responding is based on some other things that could be happening, and just really taking into consideration that realness of life, because it happens to all of us, and understanding where people may be coming from definitely impacts their reactions and some of their words. So really being vulnerable, and then also understanding that everybody is real. And as we continue to pray for our staff, our students, just lifting them up, because you never know what they are really experiencing. But it is part of our job to be that person who, if they would like to come to talk about some of those things, that they can express some of those things with with us so we can get to know them. But really, it's just real. We have to be real with each other. We can't keep the masks on. We need to be real so that we can really get to the root and do what we need to do to help our students and our staff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
When I first saw that video, um, I was almost speechless because I think the reality of it is everyone is trying to move back to some type of normalcy, and no one is really talking about how to really bring students and staff back in the process and the strategies for that. Last year, my word was empathy. So this year's reestablished. Last year was empathy. And I read a book to the staff and students. It's a kid's book about empathy by Darren Roberts. Um, and we broke that book down the entire year because you have to provide space for your staff to understand what empathy looks like. How do you put yourself in someone else's shoes? Everyone is living a different life, from staff and students, and how do you provide the space for that in your building? And so that goes back to being intentional. So I try to be intentional. And so when Carlos, you sent that video, I was like, now I got to change my video. Like I have two videos that I always show for my opening staff meeting, just about being intentional and putting yourself in someone else's shoes. But then also, you don't know what people are going through. And so, how do you work with your colleague that could be going through something but has not shared that, or they did share that? And how do you interact with students that are going through things and be empathetic about it? And so, I think providing space for the adults and students to practice that. Um, and I think that's the big piece. Practice it and be sensitive to other people's situations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So when I think about, what you all are saying, I'm thinking about, again, vulnerability, being real, that empathy, providing that space. And I know, I spent many years as a school counselor. And so providing that space was really, really critically important for students, but also for staff. I often found that my doors were open for the principal and everybody else, to be able to have a safe space, to have a conversation, and to feel like when they left, everything wouldn't go to everybody in the building. You know what I mean? And so I just really appreciate you talking about providing space for your staff to be able to do that, because we talk a lot about, helping kids to process. But Jason, you mentioned when you had a staff member that passed, right? The adults in the building are also impacted, and they have to often try to go back to teaching, right? Whenever something, especially when it happens during the school year. I remember losing students and staff members in our building, and you have the grief team come out for a day or two, but then it's expected that people go back, but there's still a lot of unresolved things that people need to go through. So I just appreciate you all giving your reactions to that video. That is very real, in all the many different scenarios that people see or don't see. When we think about that iceberg or an iceberg, there's a lot of things beneath the sea that we don't see, that people bring in with them all the time. And so we appreciate you processing that video with us. So obviously we're not going to get to every single question, but we will definitely come into, so how do you practice your own self-care? So we're talking about your staff, and we're also talking about the big job that you have. So what does that look like for you, your own self-care? I will start with, let's see, who's going first? Sherry. And then I'll go to Jason and then Tracy.
Alrighty, so I would say for me, self-care, I am more of a introverted kind of person. I like to do things like puzzles. So just coming home and like Jason was saying, you can share but don't unload. So maybe having a little discussion about some things that happened at home and then taking some time to whether we get the puzzle out or the girls and I might do some singing or some dancing around the house, just something to keep my mind on the things in my family that are very important to me, the people in my family who are very important to me, making sure that I'm spending time with them, continuing to have those strong relationships with them. Also, always praying over every situation is something that will definitely help to keep my mind in a good space as well. So that family time, that prayer, throw a puzzle in there sometime, just kind of lay down and relax a little bit. But those are things that I do to keep my mind balanced so that I'm able to do the things that I need to do.
That's awesome. You have to take that time.
Yeah. So I do my daily devotions with the Bible app. You know, they have the video and then the scripture and an opportunity to reflect. And so that's helpful to start my day that way. Music is really important to me. Um,
Mm,
and having uplifting, positive music throughout the day is helpful. I do have a Fitbit that I use to track my steps, and I'm also preparing for a 5K. And so I am on like, I don't know, workout number 15 of 30 or something like that to,
mhm.
get to that point. Get to that point. So I'm really proud of myself for committing to that, and it makes a big difference, right? When I'm exercising, eating the right things. I've done a lot more smoothies lately as I've been getting ready for this 5K, and so learning more about the different ways to prepare smoothies and the variety of ways that they can be made. It's been nice. So, and my family is really supportive on this journey. So that helps too.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So for my self care, Seneca's probably gonna laugh. But for years, I have been going to the hairdresser every week. And so people like every week. And it's really, I'll just put it like a bill. And my staff, my administrative team, my secretaries know, um, well, it was on
Tuesday.
Wednesdays. I've been going back to Tuesdays, like, I'm not covering a game. I'm not going to no meeting. I don't care what bus is not here because Tracy Coast is leaving at 3:15. And even like when I have breaks, and that's like, no, that is my personal time. I am leaving. Um, and it's just to get away from the building because there's always something going on. You can be there all time of night. There's always games, in that middle and high school world. And once a month, I have a membership with Massage Envy, and I go once a month and get a massage. And it's just my personal time to get that tension out of my shoulders and neck. It's just how do you have that balance of taking time for yourself? And I try to go to the gym in the morning before school, and people look at me like I'm crazy, but I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'll get a good 30 minutes to 40-minute workout in before I have to be in my building by 7 o'clock. And so, my team knows that. But, once a week, I am leaving that building. I'm not staying late because that's just me and my personal time. And once a month, sometimes I'll throw in twice a month. I'm going to get a massage. And so, how do you put in those? How are you intentional about those mental health days throughout the week and throughout the month? So that's what I do to try to stay sane in this position.
Yeah.
That's like so incredibly important. I recently did a presentation with some they weren't principals but they were advisors of buildings, And I was telling them that as you get ready to work with these students and with your colleagues, if you're not good yourself, you're not going to be good for anybody else. And so making sure that you take time to, like you said, Tracy, get your hair done once a week, or, you know, exercising. Jason's over there cracking up, but it's so real. Like just making sure you do those basic things to make sure you are taking care of yourself. Because people will run you ragged. They'll find something for you to do, and they'll keep asking you. But making sure you're intentional about taking that time for yourself is just so incredibly important. So I really appreciate that y'all shared that. Um, I think for our last question, we're wondering, what is a final message that you would give to parents about the start of this unique school year? Um, we'll start with Tracy, and then go with Sherry, and then close out with Jason.
One thing I talked to my parents about last Thursday during our back to school orientation was just being flexible, patience, taking one day at a time. And we're all in this together. In order for students to be successful, to get acclimated, reestablish procedures and routines in the building, you just got to take one day at a time, and working with the school, um, practicing that flexibility and patience with the different guidelines and procedures that are in place due to that we're still in the midst of this pandemic. And how do you work with us to ensure that your child and the staff are safe during the school day? So just being a team player and a partner in all of this.
Yes. Team player and partner. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I will add on to that. I was going to say teamwork too, Tracy, but I will add on to that and say also, I think that it's important for parents to be advocates for their kids. I think that as we all are working together, but it's important that the parent voice is heard, the family voice is heard. So going through this time, yes, we want to be flexible, we want to work together, but also make sure that your voice is heard, because as the parent, you really know what your child, who your child is, and what some of their needs. I think it's important that parents are advocates and understand that we are all working together. So as you talk about your child and advocate for your child, understand that the administrator is definitely wanting to work with you and it's not against you. But we are all working together. But just remember, yes, you are an advocate for your child. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
I'm encouraging my parents to share with us what they learned about their young people as they spent a lot of time with them during the pandemic. And they probably have learned some things that we need to be aware of. And so to find some productive ways to share those learnings with us, especially when it comes to their plans after high school. That's really a big thing for us now to help to connect their learning to their aspirations. And so for parents to not be afraid to share and to ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. If there's something you don't understand or know, then just ask and we'll do our best to get those answers.
Absolutely.
Y'all have given such amazing tips, such amazing, just we appreciate everything y'all shared tonight. Um, y'all's job is big. As administrators, it's a big job, and I don't think they can find a dollar amount that pays y'all enough for what y'all deal with each day. But know that as someone who works with people who are educators, I'm not an educator myself, but I work with people who work with educators. You all are appreciated. I often say that in your roles, you all are the superheroes because you have so much on your shoulders, and it's not a job that everybody can do. But God has blessed y'all to be in these positions. A couple of y'all got phone calls. Some of y'all got someone that walked in the office and said, "This is for you." So thank God those things happen. You all are in the right place, and I'm just thankful for y'all being in the positions you're in. So
Yes.
thank you all for being here tonight and sharing with the people. I think it's important that people know what administrators do and why your roles are so incredibly important for our students. So Tracy, Sherry, Jason, we love y'all. Thank y'all very much for being here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mike, in the background. We always appreciate you doing the great work in the background. Dr. and Dr. Wise, we always appreciate you both for allowing us to have this ministry and coming together once a month. And we're going to keep doing this. So I don't know what the topic will be for September, but we plan to be back in September for another one of these counseling couple Thursday therapies. So we are done for the night. And I don't know, do you have anything you want to add?
God bless you all. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And until we meet again, we just are grateful for everything that you do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
you.